Good morning, everyone. Hopefully you are having a wonderful morning so far and a wonderful start to your week. Let me know that you are here by posting in our comments. This morning, we are going to be discussing our second part of our webinar series of When Your Income Drops, Navigating Financial Resources. So if you joined us in week one, let me know that you were here week one, or if you joined us live, or if you were able to watch the recording later, let us know that too. I have a little bit of a quiz for you today. So if you joined us last week, be prepared to answer a question here in a couple minutes. So this morning, we're going to be discussing the next step. So week one, Joe Gilreath shared about stress management and taking control of your financial situation. And we discussed a little bit about our spending savings plan. And this week, we're going to dig just a little bit deeper into that. And then also talk about some financial resources that might be available and some tips and ideas on navigating through some of those resources. So I am Megan Brothers. I am the Health and Human Sciences educator for Purdue Extension in Vanderburgh County. And if you're new to Extension, you may be wondering what Purdue Extension really is and who we are. And Purdue Extension is part of Purdue University, and we are able to bring resources and research-based information to all 92 counties in Indiana. And there's even an extension network across the nation. Every state has extensions. So you may see lots of information out there from different universities that have extension services as well. And our focus is on food, health, money, and family. And this webinar series really focuses mostly on the money aspect. But as you know, all of those topics really meld with each other and combine and interact very much so with each other. So welcome to you all. Again, make sure you let us know that you're here in the comments. So today we're really going to be, again, discussing that spending plan. We're going to review if you were able to do your spending plan or start on it, or maybe this is something new if you're just joining us for the first week. And then we're going to look at ways and ideas of things that you can do to maybe cut some expenses, and then learn about additional resources that may be available to you and how to find them and how to use them. So if you were here, if you joined us last week, we discussed the spending savings plan. It's also known as a budget, but we like to use the term spending saving plan. It makes a little bit more sense. It's a little less scary sounding than a budget, but it works very much the same way. So if you were here last week, we discussed how we need to look at this first before we can look at cutting expenses, before we can look at what additional resources might be available to us. We need to see where we are. We need to see where our money's going, and we need to see how we're spending our money and what we're doing with it and where it's going. And then we can start looking at where can I find gaps? Where do I need support? All those kinds of things. So when we're looking at income, that's all of the income that might be coming in. That's either from wages, that's from any kind of benefits that we're receiving, any other sources. If you create and sell things, that would be a type of income. And then we discussed also some regular and occasional expenses. So we know our monthly expenses or even our weekly expenses that we might have. But we also have to take into account those things that are those occasional expenses that might be once or twice a year or maybe every other month, especially things like birthdays, property taxes, insurance sometimes is a 6 or 12-month payment. Thinking about those things and expenses too, so we can have the money whenever those events or those bills come to be able to pay those bills on time. So for those of you who joined us last week, and this is an example of what that might look like. So Purdue Extension, among the many programs and resources we have a program called Where Does Your Money Go? And it's a really great in-depth look at our expenses, at how we're spending our money. It's a really great program for you if you want to take a good in-depth look at that. Currently, we're not offering in-person classes right now, but we are looking at offering some virtual options. And you can always let us know that you're interested in that class, and we can let you know when we're able to offer those in person again. So contact me if you're in Vanderburgh County, or contact any of your local extension educators in the county that you live in. So when we're looking at our spending savings plan, we discussed this last week as well, we need to prioritize. So we need to really take a look at needs and wants, which is sometimes a hard conversation to have. And these are the conversations we need to have with our family. Everyone that's spending your money needs to be included in these conversations, because we need to include them and help them understand why this is important, that we're looking at our spending and potentially cutting spending or finding other ways of maybe getting more income. So our biggest priorities are having a roof over our head, having water, having electricity, having food and medication that we might need. And then after that, we can look at our loans, credit, cards, things like that. So if you joined us last week, let us know in the comments, did you make your plan? I gave you guys a task to start to look at that plan, to maybe track your expenses for the week. So let us know in the comment section if you did that. And of course, if you have any questions about that. So the spending savings plan is quite extensive. It takes a while to really get a sense of where your money's really going and what that looks like. So if you haven't done it yet, that is just fine. But perhaps, how are you going to look at tracking your expenses for the next week and potentially for the next month to get a really good sense of where your expenses are going? So let us know how you did with that. So we might, once we get a sense of where our money's going, we can get a sense of where we need to maybe cut some expenses. So the biggest thing that we can look at is, what are our needs versus our wants? So our needs are things like our house, our utilities, our food. Those are things that we really need to make sure that we have money to be able to do. We can still cut expenses in those areas as well by looking at lowering some of those bill costs. Conserving electricity, of course, conserving water are ways to lower some of those bills. You can look at whether you really need to have a cable package, perhaps, or really looking at how much you're spending on clothing, and do you really need all of the clothing that you're spending the money on, and even groceries. We'll talk week 3 about grocery spending, food budgeting, and meal planning. So make sure you join us next week if that's an area that is a struggle for you. So looking at ways that we can lower those bill amounts. And sometimes you can call your company, call your cable company, call different groups and look at how we can lower. So sometimes they might have promotional plans that you can ask for, and they might be able to do for you to lower your bill, or even just finding a way to bundle something, or to cut out a little bit of part of your plan so that you can save a little bit of money. And sometimes it doesn't work, but it's worth a phone call to try and do. And some of our companies will even have an online chat option. So if you can't make a phone call, you might be able to get some of those questions answered online through those chats. In addition, we'll talk a little bit more about the credit cards and things like that here in a minute, but that would be another way to look at cutting those expenses and lowering some of those bill amounts. Something else that you can look into that takes a little bit more time, but looking at changing your plan or changing a carrier. There's all kinds of promotional deals that come up and might be helpful, but really looking at what your need is. And some of that really depends on, again, what your need is and where you are. But again, it's worth a phone call. If it can save you even $20 a month, that's $20 a month that you have to spend for something else that you might need. Something else that we can do, and we'll talk about this more here in a little bit, but is to ask for help. Don't be afraid to ask, again, these companies for help. Ask for ways that you can lower your bill. Ask others for help. We have our own set of skills that are really great, and we have friends and family who have other skills that they're really great at. My sister, for example, is an excellent budgeter. So if I have any questions about budgeting, I will go to her because I know that she is really great at that skill. So finding those people that can help you, and we'll talk about some professional resources that can help as well. If you don't have access to friends or family, that can help. But don't be afraid to ask, because if you don't ask, the answer will definitely be no. But if you ask, the answer might be yes. So it's always worth asking. So the family resource management, which really covers that money piece of Purdue Extension, has developed an extensive list of information on ideas and ways to help your financial situation and help you when your income drops. So a lot of the information I'm sharing with you comes from those resources, and this is included in one of those. And so we can look at how we can sharpen our survival skills. So substituting, so looking at how we can save money by using less costly things instead of more costly. So if you are wanting to go somewhere, can you walk there instead of driving to use gas? If you are a big movie watcher and your families are big into movies and you order movies online, or you buy a lot of movies to watch, how can you cut that? How can you substitute either finding a streaming service that you're already subscribed to find your movies, sharing with your friends and your neighbors different videos that way, or playing board games, finding different ways of entertainment that are less expensive or free. Planning your purchases, so substituting impulse buying with planned buying, and thinking about how every penny you're spending, take a minute to think, is this a need or a want? How can I substitute something else? Using really creative ways to make meals and substituting different ingredients. And again, tune in next week if you are interested in the food prep and the food planning and food budgeting piece. Another thing we can do is to conserve. So I discussed this a little bit, but conserving our resources. If you have clothing that has a tear in it, instead of throwing it away, maybe repair it and learn how to do a quick sew on a button or sew a tear or something like that. Conserving our food waste is a huge issue for a lot of families. So really thinking about how we're saving and conserving our food, and then protecting what we have, conserving our water, conserving electricity, to really help lower some of those costs and lower some of those bills. And even using resources in new ways. So we can plant a container garden if you don't have a lot of space, or even just planting your own garden. It's really fun to plant gardens and to grow your own food. And if you have the space and the ability, then that would be a nice way to use other resources and save some money in that aspect. You can learn a new skill. So Pinterest is a great way to learn new creative ideas, to make things or do things. Taking a class, many universities and groups are offering classes for free now. So maybe you have a new skill that you want to learn and be able to use that way. And cooperate. So share with others. So if you have family and friends who you will be able, that you can maybe share some resources with. If you have video gamers, maybe you can share your video games when you're not using them, or swapping toys or swapping clothes. If you have friends that might have younger children, or even with you, that you can share clothes with, or swap or trade. Those are really great ways. Or even, sell used clothes and sell used things to help either make some money or cut those expenses on buying things that are brand new. So those are some ways. And if you have other ideas of what things maybe you have done, share those in the comments. So let's talk a little bit now about credit, because it is important and you are legally obligated to pay back any credit that you have. However, right now you may be in a situation that it is difficult or impossible to pay back some of those bills and handle those payments. So we need to think about how we can still work on paying those back, but in a way that allows us to still have the money for those things that those are essential needs our housing, our shelter, and food and medication. So think about and prioritize what are those things that are the most important things to do. So thinking about a loan that might have collateral of your property or your car or any other assets, looking at the interest amount that you might be paying on those loans or that credit, thinking about what happens if you don't pay it back on time. Sometimes it's a late payment, sometimes they have grace periods, sometimes there's additional kinds of penalties. We want to make sure that we are not going to, lose something because of a lack of being able to pay. So, or have our utilities cut off. Right now, utilities groups have, at least in Vanderburgh County, have temporarily shut off their shut off. So that is helpful, but you still need to look at ways that we can still pay those back. So if you are affected, if your income has dropped either through the coronavirus pandemic or for another reason, call your companies and be proactive. It's difficult to pick up the phone and make that call, but it's very important for you. And it's a huge peace of mind to be able to call and advocate for yourself. So calling back, asking questions about, and being honest with them and letting them know that you're in a difficult situation, and find out what are the options for you. How can you still make payments, but maybe it's a lower payment. Some companies may relieve you of the interest payment for a certain amount of time, or the interest for a certain amount of time, which will lower your payment and allow you to pay more back faster. Some are offering grace periods. There's a whole lot of options, and many companies are offering those, but you don't get them automatically. So you have to call, you have to ask for them. And of course, we want to make sure we're being aware of scams. There are a lot. I get a ton of mail every day, and some of it includes, hey, we can totally erase all of your debt. All you have to do is call us. Well, that sounds really too good to be true, and most likely those kinds of things are too good to be true. So really make sure, if you are getting an offer or getting things in the mail or seeing things online that are really too good to be true, make sure you ask lots and lots of questions about what that really will look like. But sometimes all you have to do is call the company directly, and they'll be able to work with you and understand your situation and really help you through finding ways to still make payment or offer you some grace. So after you're looking at how we can cut expenses, how we can lower our bills, how we can find new ways of spending our money or spending our things or using our things, we may still be in a situation where we need help. And that's okay. Sometimes we need help, and that's why there's a lot of resources and information and access out there. Sometimes it's hard to navigate. Sometimes it's hard to know everything that is available to you. So ask your friends and family if they have ideas as well. I have a list of resources we'll be providing to you all today. This is not an exhaustive list. There's a ton of resources out there. Many, especially now, there's a lot of groups and nonprofits and churches and other organizations that are offering support that may not traditionally offer that support. So look out there, look for help, ask for help. If you need help, don't be afraid to ask. We all need help at times. This is a tough time for many people, and even just life in general throws us curveballs. So it's okay to ask. Again, that's why these resources are here for you. So maybe it's just needing help with knowing how to work your budget, and there's resources that can help you with that. There's financial counseling support, there's credit counseling support, and be wary of those. Some of those are a little bit of a scam issue, but you can get help with those things and have someone sit down with you and work through with you about how to make your money work better for you. Perhaps maybe you need help with finding unemployment benefits, or even just some money to help pay some of your bills, or you need help with food, make sure you have enough food for your family. Maybe you need health care. We can look at what our health care looks like and what our insurance plan is, and sometimes you might be eligible for an additional support with your healthcare, with your insurance for you or your family. And it's worth looking into. So there's a lot of these resources that maybe previously you had tried to apply for or don't think that you would be eligible for, but look into them. If you need that assistance, look at them and apply for help and call these resources, and all you have to do is ask, and they can help you figure out that yes, you are eligible for some support, or you're not quite there yet and you can't access those resources, but if you can, every little bit will help. So with related to food, we have access to SNAP and WIC benefits. There are more food pantries and even the meal sites. Feed Evansville is one group that has really worked hard to provide meals and food for families. And I'll provide you guys with a resource for that here in just a minute, and even resources with clothing. So my first inclination and my first top tip is to look at buying clothes that have been previously worn if you need to buy clothes for you or your children or your families. But there are also other resources out there that can help you with clothing needs if you have them. So what are some of those resources and how can you access them? So here's again, not an exhaustive list by any means, but if you are looking for a variety of different kinds of social service support, AuntBertha.com is a really great resource for you. You put in your zip code and you can do a search for everything from helping pay your bills to finding food, and everything in between, even legal services. It is, again, probably not a completely exhaustive list, but it provides you a host of access and a host of resources that you can then find and access. Gives you phone numbers, if there's email addresses, anything like that. So check out that site for more information. Again, it'll take a little bit of time to navigate some of these things, but when you start that process, and you can start taking that control back and helping advocate for yourself, it makes a huge difference in your life. There is a food availability map, which has really been focused on lately. We want to make sure our families have food that they need. So the Feed Evansville and other groups have put together a food availability map, and this is based in Indiana. So this is all of Indiana. But you can find your specific area and have clickable links about where you can find food pantries or meal sites, and other ways that you can access some of those food support and help. The NFCC is a financial counseling support website. It helps guide you into finding the right fit for you. There's local groups that will help with financial counseling. Check with Catholic Charities. Some churches will offer some of that financial counseling support. So check out that website for more information as well. If you're needing to file for unemployment, there's a website there that gives a lot of information and ways and to help you to apply or get more information about whether you think you would be eligible for unemployment benefits. And same with SNAP. So there's a website there for SNAP benefits. It never hurts to look. It never hurts to apply to say, I wonder if I would be eligible for this help, or I wonder if I would be able to have a little bit of extra support with this. So there's the website for the SNAP, and that is specific to Indiana's SNAP program. And another resource and thought is a township trustee. So the purpose of a township trustee is to help in addition to other things, but one service that they do offer is to help pay for some bills. Now, they have requirements and we all have limited amount of money to be able to offer, but it's worth a phone call. It's worth looking into and investigating to see if it's something that they would be able to help you with. And looking at Medicaid, you may have a private insurance and you might be paying for that. And maybe if you have a change in job or a change in income, you might now be eligible for more support and more benefits. So we provided the Medicaid link there for you to, again, look and see and ask for that help and ask to see if it's something that would be a benefit for you. And legal assistance. If you are in a situation that you need some legal support, then Indiana has legal services available. The website is available there, worth looking into to see if it's something that would provide you with some assistance. 211 is another support. You can call 211 to have access to find referrals, to find resources. But they also have a website that you can access, similar to the Aunt Bertha website, where you can go and look for resources that are specific to what you need. And then Work One is another resource that's available to help you if you're searching for a job, or if you need specific kinds of job training and access to employment kinds of opportunities. That's a great way to look at how you can access those kinds of resources. So let us know in the comments if you have questions about other things that we weren't discussing or we didn't get to. I want to be able to help you as much as I possibly can with finding those resources. I do also want to give a shout out and a thank you to a couple groups that have helped me with coming up with ideas for our webinar series. Different Shades of Pretty. Thank you, Corsica, for your help with coming up with these ideas and for helping us to promote our event. And I also want to point out our group called Little Lambs. And if you're a current customer, a client of Little Lambs, post that in the comments and then hop on over to the Little Lambs Facebook page to access and reserve your voucher for attending our session today. They are a group that helps with baby and new mom materials, supplies, clothes, anything you can think of that you might need help with. They might be able to supply that for you or help you access the resources for those. So I want to thank those two groups and their additional supports as well. So make sure you put in the comments any questions you might have or other resources that you are interested in.
Megan, if you don't mind, I'm going to jump in just to share something, and I apologize if you referenced it. I was busy putting all the links in the comments, but one really good tip right now for people is to take a look at what you might have that you're not using that maybe you can get ready to resell when the consignment shops open up. Also, talk with family and friends about items that maybe you could trade or borrow with each other. It's just a really good time to simplify a little bit and think, do I really need these items? Or if I need something, is it going to be permanent or temporary? It is amazing sometimes what just a shout out to friends or a Facebook post of, does anybody have X, Y, and Z? Especially for equipment for children, again, temporary items. But take advantage of the time right now to go through things. And I think once some of the restrictions are lifted, I think we're going to see a lot of garage sales, yard sales, and consignment shops are going to be full of lots of goodies because everybody's been simplifying and going through their closets.
Yes, thank you, Joe. That is absolutely right. And I am trying to work on that as well, trying to go through and declutter, find some of those things that we don't use anymore that we can sell to make a little bit of extra money. Absolutely. Or even, like you said, and what I mentioned earlier, look at ways that you can share some of your resources with each other and find those ways to conserve, substitute, use differently. Absolutely. And so now is the time if you have other questions or comments. So if you have found a really great resource that has helped you, please share that with us in the comments. Purdue is all about community, and we want to make sure that we are sharing as a community. So if you have found a great resource that has helped you, please share that with others so that they can maybe get help from that resource as well. I have put my email address on here. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have further questions. I have access to our website, and then I do have a very brief evaluation. You can access it via online, or if you would prefer the text, there is a texting option as well. And that helps us to see how we're doing with our programming and if our programming is beneficial to you. It's anonymous, it's completely voluntary, but it does help us in our programming efforts. So please feel free to complete that evaluation and continue to ask questions. So next week, I invite you to join us again for our third and final lesson in our webinar series on, we're going to be talking about food budgeting and meal planning. That will be a very interactive one, I hope. So bring your thoughts, bring your ideas, continue tracking those expenses and letting us know how you're doing with that. And please welcome, thank you for coming. Thank you for joining us today live, and thank you for those who are watching us after the fact. Be sure, if you are a Little Lambs client, or if you're interested in learning more about Little Lambs, be sure to post in the comments, post Little Lambs, and then hop on over to the Little Lambs Facebook page for more information on that resource as well. Thank you all so much for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day.